All right, good evening. I would like to welcome you to another inspiring talk within the module Emerging at Hochschule. And today I'm glad to welcome Ila Bêka and Louise Lemoine to present their evolving cinematographic research through a series of film excerpts. So this will be very exciting. Most of you know already some of their first well-known films revealing the daily intimacy within contemporary iconic buildings, such as the famous House Bordeaux by Rem Koolhaas. I think everybody of you knows this film. Bêka and Lemoine have stood out on the international architectural scene for almost 20 years through a cinematographic work known for its innovative nature and its tender and also biting humor, which has disrupted the usual representation of contemporary architecture by putting people and users at the forefront. Thanks to an authentic artistic perspective on architecture, Bêka and Lemoine open new horizons to the relationship between architecture and cinema. Their films have been widely presented in major biennales and international cultural events, such as the 12th Architectural Biennale of Sao Paulo, recently in 2019, and many Venice Architecture Biennales and others. Their films are also frequently exhibited in some of the most prestigious museums and international cultural institutions. To name a few, is the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, the Louisiana Museum of Modern Art in Copenhagen, and the Victoria and Albert Museum and the Barbican in London. In addition, Bêka and Lemoine's films have largely been awarded by major film festivals, such as Cannes Film Festival, Venice International Film Festival, and the Locarno Film Festival, many others. And I'm especially glad to see you kind of again being part of the module Emerging Fields in Architecture. Thank you for taking the time again. For two of our students, Lucas Felter and Franziska Hummel, who are with us today, for giving them the possibility to interview you during the pandemic version of this module. So now we are all looking forward to hear more about your cinematographic research and your new ongoing film series, Omo Urbanos. The floor is yours. Welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sandra, and hello, everyone. So let me just try to share my screen. This. Okay. Wait. Okay. Do you see full screen? Sorry, Sandra. Yeah.
I see it.
Wait a second. I just need to do something. Oh, wait. Sorry. Okay, so do you see the title in full screen?
Yes.
Okay. Oh. Just a second. Okay. Okay, so let's start. So the idea today is to give you a sort of a global overview of what we do, Ila and I. We've been working, the two of us, for about 20 years now, making a lot of films. But it's always a little bit tricky to define in a kind of concise and efficient way the work we do, because we cultivate in a sort of intentional way our status of outsiders from many disciplines. And but let's say that the body of work we've been doing over the years sits at the crossroads of various disciplines from which we borrowed either like a methodology or a form of expressions. And these disciplines are non-fiction film, video art, but at the same time we engage with, of course, architecture and social sciences. But let's say that the sort of more efficient way to present our work in short is to say that we work as sort of two observers that use video or filmmaking to question the relationship we collectively develop towards space, and this at different scales, from the smallest one of the domestic realm up to the large scale of the urban environment. And let's say that our main effort through the years and through all the films we've made has been the one of replacing people, or let's say the human being, at the forefront of architecture representation. And this in order to question architecture in its role, but also in its impact from a more anthropological point of view. And we give, and this explains also the title of this lecture, we give a real importance to the notion of experience, the way we experience space, and this at the scale of the individual, but also at the scale of the group, or let's say collectively. Just to start with, I would like to start with this image, which is a sort of overview of our filmography. All films don't appear here, but the first one is down below on the right side, Colas House Life, and all the way up until the last one, Big Ears Listen with Feet, which actually was presented for its first time very recently in Copenhagen and in Milan a few days ago. In total, I think we've made more than 30 films, but what interests me more is that counting all those films, I became aware that we shot films in more than 20 countries. And this is quite revealing also of our practice, because we are extremely interested to explore how culture affects our relation and understanding of space. So it's something we really work on, these variations, these differences, let's say. Let's say that at the starting point of this research, what we wanted to engage with was really the idea of questioning the way architecture was being represented, and also to consider, to underline how fundamental the role of the image is in architecture, and more largely in our visual culture, let's say. But in the specific context of architecture, the image has become probably the first vector of diffusion, but also of construction of knowledge in architecture, because obviously we mostly know architecture through its representation. We are rarely able to visit all the buildings we study or we work on, so that gives a real weight to the reproduction of architecture. So that just to underline the responsibility that the image can carry in this field. And this from a period of studies, like all students we know base their knowledge also on image and reproduction, but also up to the way it is, let's say, thought more largely, more globally. To underline that point, I wanted to quote a very interesting text. Actually, we made a shorter quote out of it. It was a call for paper by writer and critic Enrique Walker, which was a guest editor of Revista de Arquitectura. And he wrote this text I wanted to read with you. It's about the life of a building. We know the bunkers of the Atlantic coast from a series of photographs by Paul Virilio. We know the Tour Saint-Jacques in Paris from a night photograph by Brassai. We know the Reichstag in Berlin from the photographs of the fire that destroyed its dome in 1933. and from those of its wrapping by Christo and Jean-Claude in 1994. We know the Hong Kong and Shanghai Bank building in Hong Kong by Norman Foster from a night photograph by Andreas Gursky. We know the Economist building in London and by Alison and Peter Smithson from the sequence of meme artists at the start of the film Blow Up by Michelangelo Antonioni. We know the Malaparte house in Capri by Adalberto Libera from the shooting of Le Mépris by Jean-Luc Godard and the staging of the Odyssey by Fritz Lang in the same film. We know the house in Bordeaux by Rem Koolhaas from the recording of its cleaning in the documentary by Ila Bêka and Louise Lemoine. I stop here. Obviously, we enjoyed very much finding us in this amazing list of photographs and filmmaker. So I thank very much Enrique Walker for that. But what interests us here is, as I said initially, is to see how much an image can be a vector of diffusion and of let's say of creation of a myth, a certain visual mythology around a piece of architecture. And actually, if it's a film or a well-known artist, it can become not viral, but at least really enter in our collective imagination, let's say, and have an important impact on and remaining impact, let's say. You probably all know this very famous quote from Winston Churchill: "We shape our buildings, and afterwards our buildings shape us." This is a very efficient way to evoke this, let's say, relation of influence, or how we live under the influence of our built environment. But we are interested to add to this quote of Churchill another one, which underlines also this role of representation. And this would be the way we represent our buildings shapes the way we build. I mean, teaching in architecture schools, or in many, we had many experiences in various schools. It became increasingly clear for us that the mass of images that young architect carries with in his mind is a little bit the matter with which he will then build his project. So we are extremely interested in understanding that maybe if we can change this image or this bank of images, we can potentially then make or modify or impact the whole imaginary around, and then this would have been an impact on the way we build. So we are interested to deal with this sort of circular relation of influence between the image, its massive diffusion, and then potentially global collective imagination, and then the way we build. So back to the filmography, to come back to the films, but what we will discuss today is a little bit the key concept or the key points that lie behind those still images, let's say. And there are 5 points we wanted to discuss with you today, which are probably the key ideas or elements with which we've been working during these years. And the very first one we want to start with is the one of the extraordinary of the ordinary, which Ila will talk.
So let's talk about the ordinary. That is one of the topic we wanted to inquire from the beginning, to when we started to reflect, Louise and I, about what can we do to change this kind of representation of architecture that is always a representation of a beautiful building, and empty and proper and clean and prepared building. And everything started one day in an airport when we were waiting for an airplane, a flight to go in Switzerland. And we started talking about architecture and the representation. And when Louise asked me a question, a very complicated question, and what is architecture for you? We immediately started to talk about something else than architecture, even starting from architecture, but something that is more related to an experience of a space. So from the beginning, we were interested not at the representation of the architecture as it represented normally today as the walls, beautiful doors, beautiful elements, but we were interested more in the idea of experiencing a space. What is experiencing a space? Immediately, I thought about this beautiful book that was very important for me during my studies in architecture. That is a book by Rasmussen, Rasmussen, that is Experiencing Architecture. It's a kind of history of architecture related to how people relate to the space of this architecture created. There's a moment that is talking about these kids playing on the stage of a church in Rome, and for me, from the beginning, it was very, very important that moment, that precise moment, because I understood that in a school of architecture, we never talk about what is a relation to space. And in that case, what is a relation to space from the kids, the children, how the children play with the space. Another beautiful book that was very important also during my study also is a book by Georges Perec, Espèces d'Espace, or in English, Species of Spaces. And in this book, that is a poetic wandering about through the different scale of space that we can find in our environment, from the bedroom to the universe. There's a quote that was also very important during my study that I always liked a lot, and that says, to live is to pass from one space to another while doing your very best not to bump yourself. So it's a kind of struggle, our relation to space, because we create ourselves a space to live better, to improve our living, and at the end we have to adapt ourselves to the space we have created. Something happened in that moment when we started talking about this with Louise and I. In the frame, looking at this window in this airport, a man arrived and started to clean the window. So I took a second picture of this window with this reflection, this light reflected, and we kept on to discuss about now not anymore what is architecture, but what is a space, and related to what we were doing at that moment, because we were going to present a film in a festival. We started to imagine how to represent a space. This is a very complicated question, because in architecture we know how to represent, but a space is we don't even know what is a space. It's quite complicated to define what is a space. So how to represent a space? Another book went in my mind. That is a book by Bruno Zevi, Architecture as a Space. And in that book, there's something that's a moment that he's talking. Says Bruno Zevi says that there's no way to represent the emotion that you can have in a space, so you have to experience it. So you have to go there. The architecture, you have to live inside the architecture. It's a sensation that you have to prove with your body, with your five senses. So architecture is something that has to be experienced. But there's a way, maybe better than photograph, there's a way to reproduce or to share or try to share this experience, is to do it with the cinema, with the film, so with the moving image. So we started to talk about with Louise how what we would like to make if we one day we didn't have made a film before about space, about architecture. So we started to imagine what kind of film we would like to do one day if we have to represent a space. It has like a game like this, like a kind of joke. We did a list yes, a kind of list of which, or a list of desire that things that we would like to see in a film, related to the space and architecture. And as you can see at the beginning, it was very important for us to put people inside the frame, inside the image. We don't see enough people inside the representation of architecture. But many other points of this list were also very important. So the importance of the body and the movement, the ordinary life, and filming people that are normally not filmed or represented in architecture. And so on, disorder, spontaneity, bad weather, the rain. So a very long list of things that for us were the forbidden things that you never see in the representation of architecture. And we thought that from the beginning that students, but not only students of architecture and architects, everyone has to be to see in the representation. Something happened fantastic moment with the man that was at that moment in front of us. And I took this image was the third one that we call our little first film that is made by these 3 images. And this image for us, it was kind of a revelation, because we saw in this image what we could do for change a little bit this representation of architecture. We call this man the saint of maintenance. That is, for us, was really a revelation, a kind of illumination, and we immediately thought a kind of revolution that in 17th century happened in paintings. And it was a revelation because it was the first time that we could see normal people or working class represented in the paintings. So we said, thinking inspired by this kind of artistic revolution, we thought that we could do also maybe something like this, introducing in a representation of architecture the normal people that you never see. So we had the big opportunity to make a film in one of iconic architecture from the 20th century, that is the house in Bordeaux by Rem Koolhaas. And we met this lady, that is the housekeeper of the house, and we asked her to stay with her for 2 weeks. And filming just her experiencing the space of this iconic architecture. Out of this experience that we shared with her, we made a film that is a film one hour long, and the film is the beginning of the film. That is a film made by 26 little chapters, little fragments, and at the beginning of the film there's a kind of tribute of all the people like her that are always working on the space and knowing very well, but never being represented. And this is the first excerpt. So this is the house, and this was the beginning of the film. This homage at this these people that we call the invisible, because they are never visible in the representation. This is the house by Rem Koolhaas, and something we wanted to show is because we made also a book with together with this film, is representing something that you never see, as we have seen in the list. So disorder and the water, the leaks, the ordinary life, going even to show the bird that splashed in the windows, or little problem that so, and I don't remember moles, also the name of this beautiful on the wall, the moles on the wall, and also becoming to people that are working on the architecture. This image let us think about a very famous painting by Giuseppe Pellizza da Volpedo, that Il Quarto Stato, the Fourth Estate. And we thought that from that experience that we shared with this lady, we maybe could also develop more films and more other moments to spend with the people working in the architecture, even in the iconic architecture. So we thought to go on to other films that we made about a series of films that we called Living Architecture. That is a series of 7 films shot in a very iconic architecture, like this one is a building by Herzog de Meuron in Pomerol in France. And still from there we keep making films and photograph and the representation of ordinary people, as you can see, really maintaining this space. This is related to also always to this painting. And one of this project was that we made is by at the new museum Fondazione Prada in Milano, where we spent a month. They asked us to stay there for a month before the opening. So we thought that it was a good opportunity to be interested by the workers also. That is not only people that maintain, but the people that create the space. And this is a little extract from this film we made for Fondazione Prada.
Okay, again, just to mention that these are short extracts, and the film in its full length is about 30 minutes or something like that. Another point we wanted to evoke today, and which has been a crucial, let's say, or leading idea in various films and also books we've worked on, is the question of the emotional power of space. And these, let's say, covers a lot of subtleties or under topics, as you see here, the question of, or let's say, of course, the sensoriality involved in our relation to architecture. Let's say that we tend to really underline how immersive the experience of space is, as it's one of the rare, let's say, form of art in which our body is fully immersed, involved in, compared to any other, like sculpture or painting or music or any kind of other forms of expression. I wanted to evoke this point. I wanted to start with a sort of little story or anecdote, which also developed for us a very high interest towards children, or the way children relate to space. We have two kids, Ila and I, and our older daughter, when she was 5 or 6, I think, we proposed her to a little experiment in order also to start making her more aware and conscious of her small environment and relation to space, let's say. So we took her a bedroom and we said, okay, Magdalena, you can, for 1 week, let's say that you can modify anything in your room, the place of any furniture, and we'll see then afterwards what you want to keep, or the way you want to keep it, and why, and to understand why. So the first step was she decided to move her bed on the other wall so that she could see through the window when she woke up, for instance. So she moved then. Second step, she moved it on the other corner, on the other side, but to keep also the view and the perspective from the bed to the outside. Third step, she wanted to modify a little bit, but keeping, as you see, still the perspective, the visual perspective outside the window, moving the other furniture in a rather rational way in every angle or along the walls. Next step was a little bit more irrational, and she said, okay, let's try to see how I can see through the window, but having the window from the back so that I can also read a little bit better. I don't need additional electric lights until late at night, etc. So she said this way. Next one was really a sort of more inventive transformation, and because obviously, as you know, kids love creating shacks and finding like a very comforting, very protective relation to space, going under furniture, etc. So she placed her bed exactly at the center of this sort of accumulation of furniture at the very center of the room. And then she exploded all this construction in many pieces all around in a very sort of spontaneous explosion, and put the bed in a very strange place, which was almost closing or forbidding the entrance to her door, to her room. She had to jump on the bed to enter the room. And at the end of the week, we said, okay, Magdalena, now that you've experimented many possibilities, where would you like to place your bed in a more a continuous way for the coming weeks or months? And curiously, we were very surprised that she decided to place her bed again at the very same place it was initially. But she said the reason why is actually that more than looking through the window, what I like the most is looking through the door. And why this? Because this is the way through which you, my parents, come, so that I can see when you come in or you come out. And this is for me important because I want to, it's the way I keep relation with you. And that was really surprising for us, so it was revealing for her, but as well for us. And then she decided to place, nevertheless, the desk in front of the window because she enjoyed having the views. And then she kept the idea of the shack with the accumulation of furnitures in the angle, so that she could create a little house within the house in a more protected way. And this actually experience that we then made many times, because afterwards she enjoyed so much that she wanted to modify even the kitchen, the living room, etc. So it's something that she enjoyed so much that she keeps doing in a sort of natural way now. But it makes me think of, you probably all know, are familiar with the work of the French philosopher Gaston Bachelard, who very much reflected on these, let's say, psychological, emotional relation with space. And above all, in his seminal book, The Poetics of Space, he talks about the house in particular way, saying that the house is our corner of the world. It is our first universe, a real cosmos in every sense of the word. It is an instrument with which to confront the cosmos. And these beautiful words followed us also on a lot, because from the start, when you make films, obviously you are led to choose. Often people after screenings ask us, but how did you choose the places, the architecture where you made films? And one of the, let's say, main reasons is that we like recounting stories, and let's say that we very quickly understood that the scale of the house, or the home, to say it, because in English you have this difference of word which implies this emotional relationship with space, which is very rich. And we understood that the house was the richest territory, the richest space, let's say, the more loaded with emotions and psychological relationships, being positive or even negative, because obviously it's not only the relation to space, but it's the relation with your relatives, which are like embodied within the space itself. So just to evoke this, I wanted to talk shortly about the film, which is so much about those questions of an emotional relation to space and to the house in particular. It's a film that we shot a few years ago in Japan, in Tokyo. The title of the film is Moriyama-san, which means Mr. Moriyama. And Mr. Moriyama lives in an exceptional house built for him, with his name. It's the Moriyama house, built by Ryu Nishizawa, the partner of the duo Sana. The house is built, as you see here, the house has been built as a sort of split body. It's composed of 10 little cubes, which are spread over the land, the small land. And each cube has a function. So Mr. Moriyama has to go to the garden to go from his bedroom to his bathroom, and then to his bathroom to his kitchen, and to his kitchen to his living room, etc. So there is a idea of an explosion of the domestic unity into little blocks, and it makes an exceptional connection and relation between the inside and the outside, the garden and the inside house, etc. So Mr. Moriyama is a sort of hermit living in a small forest at the center of Tokyo. And you see here from above a sort of view, so that gives you a better idea of the place. And as he actually doesn't live in all the blocks. He rents 4 or 5 blocks to others, and so it creates a sort of little community. It's a very lively and friendly world in itself. As we said, we spent the time during the film to explore how Mr. Moriyama, which has an exceptional sensitivity and sensorial relation to space, how he moves around the house during the day, depending on the light, the quality of light that enters through the large windows, but also depending on his program of readings. He's a real amateur in the most honorable sense of the word. He is passionate about not only cinema, music, but also literature, philosophy. He reads many kinds of books, which was really surprising. And he chooses the topic depending on the space. So each space has a specific atmosphere or specific characteristics based on which he will choose the title for the day. So he spends the day going from a point to another, changing books and various activities. So I want to show you the trailer of the film. It's a short extract.
Happy birthday.
Not my birthday.
You're probably familiar with the work and thoughts of Juhani Palasma, this Finnish philosopher and architect, who is probably today the more engaged with the sort of phenomenological thought in relation to architecture and space. He says, experiencing a space is a dialogue, an exchange. As I enter a space, the space enters me and changes me. And this idea that the architectural experience is really an alchemy. It's a dynamic relation with space. It's not in a one-way relationship that I enter a space and I see and feel, etc. But there is a real exchange, something that is even beyond my sort of rational understanding, and also beyond my, let's say, control. So that's something we are extremely interested by, and actually it's the topic of a book we are working on right now. We are ending this project now. The title of the book, or it's the working title, let's say, The Emotional Power of Space. And you see in the image the various participants, because it's a book based on conversations we had with very different architects, as you see, very different in terms of generation, in terms of culture, background culture, in terms of age as well. But with all of them, we tried to gather their intimate memories or also the way they sense and experience space from and this from their memories from their childhood up to today. So the idea of this book is actually sort of invitation to sharpen our sensorial perception of space, but also our awareness towards our sense of presence in relation to space and also to time. Just a short quote, which is resuming or very much talking about what we are exploring in this book, is from writer Jorge Luis Borges. The taste of the apple lies in the contact of the fruit with the palate and not in the fruit itself. So I encourage you now to eat an apple with this quote in mind, and you probably will eat it and savor it in a different way. But it is extremely interesting to analyze or to get a little bit more conscious about these mechanisms at stake in the relation of in the experience, let's say, in relation to space. Next topic, Ila will say you.
Yeah, we'll talk about what we call the structure of memory from the beginning when we started to make films, and we made this this list that you have seen. We started thinking that something we didn't want to do is it was a documentary, in a sense, a classic documentary, what you can find in 99% of the film that you can see about architecture is a kind of documentary where you have many people talking heads, many people talking and saying very intelligent, interesting things, and try to talk about the building and of the architecture, explaining everything. So at the end of this film, of this kind of films, you have understood everything. So you're very happy because you know everything about this building, about the architect and the ideas of the architect, and so it's done. So you can watch another one. So from the beginning, we wanted to do something totally different. Is we're talking about, as I've said before, about an experience. What is an experience? Experience is a kind of information that you have in mind, that your sense has build up in your mind, in your brain, and it's a kind of a collection of little it's a chaotic collection. As you can see, this is a drawing that we made at the same time of the list that we talked before, and it's a kind of chaotic collection of little fragments that you the memories, that information, little memory that you have of this experience that you made in this space. We wanted to stay at that state, not make an order like the language is. That you can see the line that is going out from the mouth. It's this is the normal chronological order that the language, but also the normal documentary do on this chaos. But instead of this order, we wanted to stay in this chaotic collection and represent this chaotic collection in the more possible as we could do with the film. That is quite complicated. A film is also a chronological is in a chronological composition, chronological order. So we immediately thought about the relationship that there are between the neurons in the brain, how the memories are constructed, and the memories are constructed, and has also this beautiful quote by Borges, are constructed in the relationship that the neurons have between them, and this is so the relationship between all this collection of memory is more important than the fragments itself. There's a beautiful drawing by Saul Steinberg that was at the beginning for us very inspiring. Is this really this beautiful chaos in the head, and this led us to take this list, inspired by this drawing, take this list of forbidden things that you can never see in architecture, in film, And we put it on a graphic script that we call a script, but it's a kind of graphic disposition of these words. And having this in mind, we started to make the film. So we try to make a film not with a chronological script that we normally you do when you make a film. You know, when you make a film, you write down everything you need and you go filming because you just need to put inside every point, every list that you have. But we wanted to feel totally free, but having in mind all this kind of inspiring words. And do it like this, just filming what we found. So the construction of the film at the end, this is always the first one, but all the films we made after this one they have the same structure. It's a collection for little pieces, little fragments that could be completely different every time you see the film. We can change it completely. That's something we did and we do all the time. We re-edit our film in a different order, completely different. And we developed this methodology for all our films until having a graphic script much more complicated, more developed, like this one. That is the graphic script that we use for a film we made several years after. That is Barbicania, this film that we shot in London in a very big complex of 2,000. I think 2,500 apartments in the city in the center of the city. So we did this for other films, also in a square. That is a film that we made in Paris, in a square, Place de la République in Paris, or in Copenhagen for the film that is made is called The Infinite Happiness, and so on. So every film we decided to keep this kind of collection of memories of something that we have experienced with the space and with the people that are in that space. This is very important also talking about the time, because this is about how to represent a space, but also how to represent the time of in a film. A film can give you the possibility to jump in the past, in the future, or stay in the present. We decided that we wanted to stay in the present, making our film. So talking about what is happening in that moment. So here and now, that is hier and nun, here and now. And so just filming what is happening at that moment. So we are feeling in that moment, what we are observing in that precise moment. As you see, as you know, the work of the architects, you can see here, it's a work that started with the conception, and the architect works until the birth of the building. That the birth is the building is the opening, let's say. But the architects makes, as you can see, a curve that is a kind of projection in the future. So the architect work in the preparation of the building, but having in mind an idea that how people will live in the future in his building. But the day of the opening, the work of the architect is finished. The architect go to the opening, is very happy because the building is in the best shape. Everything is beautiful. No one has lived inside, so there's no dirt, there's no life, and that is the best moment to take a photograph, to represent the building. So 99% of the building or the photograph of the representation of the architecture that you can see in books and Instagram of the website is made at that moment, the moment of the birth, one day before, or even the same day. So when everything is clean, everything is prepared, everything is controlled. Something that we absolutely didn't want to do, because we wanted to be much more interested in what is happening in what we call the post-occupancy. So when life is coming, is arriving, and but the architect is not there anymore. And we decided that we wanted to make our experience with the space in that part. So it is the right part of this graphic. So in this white right part, you can find something like this. This is on the left house by Le Corbusier when it was just finished, or almost. But on the right part, you have all it's the same house. This is the same house, but the house has been modified by people living in that house, that maybe they decided that they wanted a different house. So they changed the house completely. Obviously, the architect is very attached to his project, his building. But life is changing everything, and maybe something also interesting is happening on the right part. This was another book for us that is related to these images. It's a book very important by Philippe Boudon that is talking about the Pessac de Le Corbusier. This is a series of buildings that Corbusier built close to Bordeaux, near to Bordeaux, and where the inhabitants talk about this adaptation and this life inside the building. So here we are, our film experience in somewhere in this line, where we are all our films we made is a kind of time that we have spent in that places, and so we stayed for a moment. So we spent a while in that place. That could be from 25 minutes to 30 days or even more. But every film is grounded in really in that the time we spend there. This is the last one. So even the last one is made like this. So it's a film made in one day. So this is even less than one day. The 24 hours is 12 hours, I think. We have it here, 15 hours. And this is a film that we made in Bangkok, staying for 15 hours with this very good architects from Thailand, that is Bunserm Premtada. And what was interesting for us is because this architect is almost deaf, and so he's very, very interested in an architecture, creating architecture that is very, very strongly related to the senses. So not only the sound, but also the touch in every sense is more than the view, but something that's normally very important for the architecture. I will show you a little extract of this. I think it's the trailer for the new film. You hear my voice, but not Louise's voice, no?
Oops, sorry, just a second. Okay. So last point we wanted to evoke, which is a topic which has followed us from the start, and we explored it in many different ways through the films, is the question of vulnerability. And the project in particular I wanted to discuss today, is entitled Homo Urbanus. It's a particular project for us because it's a very wide project and still ongoing, by the way. It's composed of 11 films, each one of an hour. So it's 11 hours of films and shot in 11 cities. Cities extremely different. We shot in St. Petersburg, in Seoul, in Naples, in Tokyo, in Bogota, Doha, Shanghai, Rabat, Venice, Bangkok, and Kyoto. So very, very different context, very contrasted environments. But what is very interesting for us is that we use this sort of comparative dynamic among the films, because more than depicting a city in particular in a frontal way, what these films look closely at is how, let's say, the urban environment affects our lives, how also it shapes our behaviors, our attitudes, how it impacts our relation with space, but also with the others. Let's say how the city frames, but also order and direct the way we live collectively in the spaces of the city. Let's say there's a project, and that explains also the title. The project really questions this sort of strange animal we call the Homo Urbanus, so the urban man. And also through the spectrum of its sort of miraculous faculty of adaptation in a rather complex environment he built for himself, and sometimes even hostile, let's say. So the films are to be considered as one single enormous piece, so that we understand it more as a sort of cinematographic fresco, which dives into the depth of urban daily life. And the idea is putting the man under the microscope to look closely at sort of silent rules and forces that, let's say, order our societies, but in a sort of, yes, silent way. And all this can be read or understood through the observation of the street life, let's say. There are many, many topics that we deal with in these films. You see some images and can guess, but let's say that we give a real focus on how we physically experience the space of the city, how we cope with the fact of living in very densely populated cities. So we are very interested in looking at all the dynamics of interaction, how we physically relate to space and to also the other individuals. Another aspect related to that is also the one of how we develop a sort of corps relationship with the city itself, with the body of the city. So we are extremely interested to depict this sort of daily struggle or this constant state of physical effort in our daily life in cities. And that explains why we gave particular attention to all the forms and manifestation of vulnerability in the cities. And above all, we are very interested to observe how you grow old in city, how elderly manage to live in dense cities, because obviously the city as a sort of machine is a place where strength, efficiency, and competitiveness are more leading values than care, let's say. So another point we gave a lot of interest to is also observing through these various cultures how we deal with a sort of threshold between the private and public space. What is the space of the street, what the space of the street means from a culture to another, and how this idea of public space is also modified and adapted from a culture to another. We gave, as you will see in some extracts, also a particular focus to informal economies and how these sort of spontaneous ways of inventing oneself to find a sort of self-made job, how it works in public space, how it let's say how it performs in space, with also a great sense of adaptation. Another point we were extremely interested, and you've seen some images shot in Venice, is also related to natural elements and to let's say very problematic effects of climate change in the way we live in cities today. So Homo Urbanus, as I said, is such a large project that we tend not to show it as a sort of normal film, but we show it more as a large video installation because it's composed almost as a sort of musical composition. We call it a cinematographic odyssey rather than just a film. So you can see here a few images of installations we made and exhibitions we made these past years in various places, various cities, and it keeps actually being shown around. A source of inspiration, let's say that this project has been fed by a long lineage of references, but a source of inspiration which was particularly interested for us was the urban symphonies from the 20s, which at the time were a sort of pure expression of modernity because they were expressing this historical moment of encounter between the newborn metropolis in its enormous boom of industrialization with the newborn cinema, which was a brand new, let's say, art form at the time. The stills you see here is from the most well-known film out of these series of urban symphonies, which is Dziga Vertov, Man with a Movie Camera from 1929, but there are many more. Let's say that's more or less in every big city of the time, of the 20s, one urban symphony has been produced. The way we relate in some ways to that heritage of the urban symphony is about how expressive these films were, even being silent movies. And obviously at the time they were using a sort of virtuoso editing, which was extremely interesting. But we can say that Omo Urbanus is also singular for us because if we have used enormously the dialogue, the relation to language and to expression in many of our films, these films, Omo Urbanus, are the only one where we don't speak with people. So it's a sort of reinvention or reinterpretation of a silent movie, in which we give voice to the language of the body. So it's a pure exercise of observation of body language and how our behaviors, attitudes, and movements to the city can express the behind the scene rules, let's say. Another film we are, let's say, attached to and we relate a little bit to in this series is a short film made by Ellen Levitt and James Agee, which were two great street photographers of New York. The film is entitled In the Street. It's from 1948, and it's shot in Harlem, in the Spanish area of Harlem. And at the beginning of the film, there is a sort of short text of introduction, which in many ways talks about what we intend to do with the Omo Urbanos project. I read it for you. The streets of the poor quarters of great cities are above all a theater and a battleground. There, unaware and unnoticed, every human being is a poet, a masker, a warrior, a dancer. And in his innocent artistry, he projects against the turmoil of the street an image of human existence. Another historical figure I just want to evoke, which has been extremely influential for us, but not only for us, Jean Rouch is a major figure of documentary filmmaking. He was French, and he was, let's say, when the Nouvelle Vague, this new kind of cinema, appeared in the 60s, he was the one who led that revolution happen in the documentary field. And what Rouch, let's say, has taught us is that cinema can really be an exploratory medium, which implies that film is not just a form given to a project that would have been, let's say, accurately written and conceived and scripted beforehand, but on the contrary, making a film can be also an active form of thinking in itself. You can make, let's say, elaborate the film while making it, and that's the way we do it. So that's why sometimes we present the way we make films as a sort of performative cinema, in the sense that, as Ila said, explained to you earlier, we are extremely interested in creating films around high constraints of time and place, which are like rules of the game. And from this, we then drift. We try to get the maximum of what happens to us in a sort of pure relating to improvisation in a sort of totally unscripted way. And that's why we are, let's say, now trained to work with the unexpected, or with error, or with chance, or whatever happens in front of you when you are somewhere at one precise moment. And so despite this idea, let's say, of improvisation, as Ila explained to you, we are very interested to use the graphic script, or a way to list or to draw topics and ideas around which we will sort of freely wander and elaborate the films. And this is the graphic for the Omo Urbanos project, and which sometimes also transformed with colors and extra topics. And this is an example for Homo Urbanos. But I want to show you right away an extract of this series. It's a little bit difficult because, as you understood, it's a project very wide, very long, of 11 hours long, but we made a selection of very short extracts, which probably will give you an idea.
아니 엘메이차를 차 빼놓으라고.
Okay, just yeah. Maybe as a concluding word, I think we let's say that we try to defend the importance of observation in the practice of architecture as a sort of and this also in our teaching involvement with students. What we are, this is probably something we can discuss now, is how much observation for us is a sort of key element to listen more carefully to people's needs, observing their behaviors, their cultural habits, etc. And this is a mass of information which is unbelievably rich for young architects to, and also being able then to respond to it with more sensibility, let's say. Okay, that's it. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you so much for this extraordinary talk. Wonderfully prepared with super impressive examples. We have a lot of questions in the chat. Before I ask the question, and because you referred to it, I would like to ask the motivation for this talk, the motivation for your work. Do you think there is a need that architects should relate more to human needs?
Oh yeah. Yes, I think it's it's the very I mean, it's all about points of view, but I think architecture is a strange discipline where you have obviously different tendencies, in which one tendency is more tempted to think architecture as a piece of design, which is perfectly or attentively crafted as a result of a masterful, let's say, approach to shape, to form, to space, etc. And there is the other tendency is more generous, let's say, which is the one of understanding that we build spaces for people and following specific needs. And so we should probably learn a little bit more about how we live before designing those spaces. And so that's what, let's say, the work we've been doing with our students in many places was the one of forgetting design as but rather to invite them to go outside the schools and to take the camera or any other tools just to observe and to develop their ability to look at how we interact, we use space, being the one of the street or being the one of the houses or any kind of spaces, in order to enrich their human sensitivity or their understanding of also how culture affects these the way we relate to space, and how all these are very subtle aspects to take into account when you design for people.
Have you taught that to students, to architecture students?
Yeah, exactly. We've been let's say the most demanding teaching involvements we had was at the AA. We had these diploma units for master students that we entitled Laboratory for Sensitive Observers. And but each time in any university, Ila is been teaching for years at Mendrisio in Switzerland as well. And so each time we invite students to make film, so to use film as a language, as a tool, or to develop their observations and abilities.
Normally I don't talk so much, and I'm not the first in asking questions, but I had to. But let's give the next question to one of the students. Let me see. It is let me see. I have a few. Lucas. I think the first question is from Lucas. In the chat, usually we let the students talk. I'm not sure, Lucas, can you talk? Then I will ask for him the question. Can you?
Where is Lucas? I don't see him.
No, he told me that he's in the library and to ask me.
Okay.
I will ask the first question for him. How much, maybe we can hear him later. How much influence do you think ordinary people should have in ordinary people with disease feet should have, how much influence you think ordinary people should have in creating space architecture? And do you think it's more important adapting space, or should the people already be involved in building planning processes?
Let's say that how can I say we don't have a solution. I want to have a solution. I think there's many different ways to participate to architecture. Of ordinary people can participate, can be part of the project, or can be also the builder, as how them happens in many cities. People do themselves the houses, so they create it. But there's always a problem of the economy, because making a house is very expensive. So is always related to the money that you have, and the quality of the space is also related to this. So I don't think there's a perfect solution, a magical solution. I think what we can try to do ourselves is just to be a little bit more precise in the observation of the human behavior, and try to understand better how human beings behave together, and how they live together, and also how to understand how the errors that we made before creating not only the architecture but the cities that we have been creating. And looking at this, observing very precisely, very attentively these behaviors, we can understand what not to do again. So this is maybe for us the most important things to do, is showing how people live to avoid to do again the same errors. So when you watch, for example, Homo Urbanus, if you watch our films, you can understand nothing maybe about the cities itself, about St. Petersburg, Bogota, or Seoul, but you can understand that living in a city is a very difficult struggle. Is complicated to live in the cities. Everybody is struggling. Everybody is very tired of living in a city. That's obviously many good things of living in a very big city, and this is also interesting, but is not the point. Is not the aim. We will just underline how people struggle, and maybe create a better cities based on this observation. So we think that architects, or even better students in architecture, they have to become the expert of human beings more than the expert of the construction and the buildings, because you can build a house if you know better who are you building for. If you don't know if you know, let's say this problem, this very horrible word, if you don't know your client, because we are all clients of the architect. If you don't know your client, you cannot do a good architecture. And the client is the humanity. So you have to understand better what is humanity. And teaching in the school, we always are surprised from this totally absence of the anthropology part of the study, because we never in the School of Architecture we never teach to understand people. We just learn or teach to the students how to build, what is the regulation, the history of architecture, the beautiful building, everything, the technology, all of this. But there's a very, very few part of this that is related to the anthropology, to understand better the people, no, better the community, how to understand when you build, and also to understand the sense, the vulnerability of the people, no. So we are just thinking about the functionality a lot. An architect thinks a lot about the functionality. Not only the beauty, but a lot, but also the functionality. But it's not everything is functionality, no? It's just how we can live together, how we can find a way to stay together better, no? And this is an immense topic for the architects. And after that, you can go inside in the details. We can start to think about the details, everything you want. And this is maybe after that is architecture. Before, if you are not able to talk to the others and observe the others, I don't know if you can be a good planner for our life.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we live in a strange world. We learn a lot, we know a lot, but little do we know about ourselves, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And about our environment. But now, I mean, in the module Emerging Fields in Architecture, this year we discussed a lot about us in relation to the environment, us as architects in the role of what we can do for the future, what we should do for the future. And your lecture is a great input for that. So thank you very much. The next question is from Michael, please.
Yes. Do you think that these ordinary people behave different in these extraordinary spaces like the Coal House building than in the spaces they're used to? Like, do they have different emotional relations to that extraordinary architecture than normal architecture?
Let's say that just to be more precise, we've used this word of ordinary people, which sounds very bizarre, and the intent was not at all to create sort of a social split or any kind of things, but we, as Ila said initially, we were extremely interested to open up a sort of more democratic, more collective and an inclusive way of discussing architecture, opening the debate and giving voice to people that are never represented. So that's why we started our research with question of labor and all these physical relation to space. And of course, in order to start, we needed to, we needed to attack, in some ways, icons. That's why we started to work in a very well-known environment, architecturally speaking. We've been working on several buildings of Pritzker Prize winning architects, but through the lens of the most banal, most common activities of the daily duties. So that's why we needed to establish this sort of strong contrast between the way these buildings were known and let's say how they inhabited our collective imagination through all these glossy photographs we all knew from all the magazines around the world. So we needed to find a way to destroy a little bit that sterile representation, opening up a debate which in some ways this sacred or was a little bit dissacrante, which a little bit fighted this sort of sacred world of the perfect image. I don't think there is any difference in the way you relate to space, if that space is exceptional or non-exceptional, or if you are used to architecture or not used to architecture. Emotion is something that happens in any case, and emotion is not necessarily related to awe and extraordinary, but on the contrary, it can be very bad or pleasant or unpleasant. I mean, there is such a wide range of emotions, but let's say that what we've been trying to do through all the films later on was to explore how someone, being usually not trained as an architect, so not with the tools of language of the architect, not with the also expertise of an architect, how he could put words on how on his relation to a space, on the way he was experiencing that architecture. And more than often, we tend to explore architects that obviously they tend to provoke more like stronger reactions or disrupt your habits in relation to space. And that's really interesting for us because necessarily it questions all the habits or also automatisms you have in relation to space. So that's why we've done that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you. Ariana?
Thank you. Thank you very much for your so inspiring lecture. I was just wondering about when I just watched your films. To me, they were just like so very vibrant because the mixture of the music, of the soundtrack, and the scene, also the video and the images. I just wondered by which criteria do you choose the background soundtrack, and what is the film made by you that touched you the most?
Let's say about music that I would say we don't choose a background, we choose a foreground. So we don't put the music in the background. We didn't want to put the music in the background, never. Because for us, the music is not something that is just a background to underline something else.
Like a carpet.
But we don't like this kind of music. So we every time we use a music, we choose a music because that music is creating a new sense related to the image we put it together. So let's say that the music and the image together, they create another relation, a new relation. And this is very interesting way also of editing our film, because if you change the music and or you change the image, the sense is completely different. In that case, the music becomes one of the character of the film. So for us, it's extremely important, the music, but not always is important to have music. For example, in Homo Urbanos, we don't have music because in Homo Urbanos, it was something completely different. It was to listen to the music of the city, let's say, to the noise, and the noise also is a very important music. We can we can listen to the noise that you can hear in the city and turn it in a kind of music itself. So in that moment, the sound of the city is not the background; it becomes a foreground, and so we are totally inside the city if the sound becomes the foreground. Otherwise, yes, it's just like I don't know. We don't have any elements in our films that are not so important. Otherwise, we don't use them. So, and the music, let's say the sound itself is extremely important to create a new sense or create new relationship with the image. For your question about the what is the film made that you touched you the most, is it's maybe I would say always the last one. So in this moment is the last one that we made in Bangkok, but it's making a film for us. It's a great pleasure, but also a great effort, big effort. So it's like having a new baby. So when you have a new baby, you love him, and you love also all the other babies at the same time. So maybe there's no one. There's obviously you think that there's a film much more important for our research evolution, but we put all our efforts in all the films we made.
Let's say that we make films by enthusiasm and not by, it's not a job, it's an artistic research. So it's really based on, it's not the routine of, I don't know, like if you work for TV programs or so. It's really, each of our films is related to an encounter and in which we build relationship with someone or many people sometimes, and so we are fed by that relationship, and so each time is an adventure. And as I said initially, as we don't script the film in a classical sense before, each film is a surprise for us. It's really the idea of the adventure. You know when you start, but you don't know where it will lead you. And that's really exceptional in terms of experience for us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Michael Forschelt.
So thank you very much for your presentation. I was wondering, how do you choose the subjects of your documentaries? Do you have like clients who commission you, or do you decide yourself what to film?
It's related to what we were saying now. It's mixed. We can decide that, for example, the last film we made, this one in Bangkok, we decided to do it. We wanted to do it, so we decided to do it. We are very light production, so we don't need many people and a lot of money to make films. So we can decide that one day to the other to make a film because we would like to make this film. So when we find a subject that is very important for us, or touching or moving, we decided like that one in Bangkok, we decided just to take a plane, a flight, and go there and make the film. So this was the last one, for example. We decided that we had an encounter online with the architect, Bunsem Premtada, and we decided to go there and make the film immediately. And this is very important for us to do it like this, not preparing too much. Otherwise, the film is not loses the spontaneity. So we want to, when we have because many people ask us why you are going so fast. We are not going fast. We are just preserving the spontaneity. And if you wait a lot for your project and you think and you rethink and you do it, redo it and redo it, at the end you lose some. Maybe your project is much more defined. Is maybe you can go closer to the perfection, but as we don't like perfection, we prefer to stay far from the perfection. We do it immediately, and so as we can. So this is a way to do the films. Another way is that when we find someone that is interesting in our methodology, our way of making films, they propose us an idea, and we decide if we try to understand if this idea is interesting for us, for our research, let's say, and if we can also change it a little bit to push it a little bit more in the direction we are going on. So if we took a direction, we are going in that direction, we can change it when we want. But if someone proposes us at making a film that is going in that direction, we are happy to do it if we have the freedom to do it as we want. At the beginning was very complicated. Now it's what is complicating is to refuse, but we refuse a lot, and sometimes we say yes because we see that there's a margin of freedom, and the project is going in the same direction. So we are making film also, let's call artistic commission, that where you have more freedom than a real commission. We don't make film as commission from an architect, say, I would like that you film my building. This is not something we do. But an artistic commission, yes, that's something that someone that says in this building, or museum or biennale or something, that they ask us to work on a topic and propose to do it. Yes,
Exactly.
it depends. It depends. So we do this, but only when we are interested in the topic we are making the film.
So thank you very much.
Thank you to you.
Thank you. Eva?
So in your films, you want the actors not to act, I guess. So how do you proceed while filming? So how much do you interact with the people you film so that you are still sure nothing is staged, and to allow the script to be whatever it just happens to be?
Yeah, exactly. It's as we said initially, the films are made out of an encounter. So what you give me will make the film. It's not, I don't have preconceived ideas of what you should say during the film, but on the contrary, you are the leader as the character. So the idea is it's a little bit like the quote from Borges about the experience. It's half of the film is made by what the character gives. It would be the taste of the apple, but the other half is also, as a filmmaker, what you choose to give of yourself, what you choose to give attention to. We make films in a very subjective way, very personal. That's why we hardly find ourselves in what is called an architecture film, because if you have seen some, usually the voice or the tendencies to make like films where there is not any, you hardly can feel the presence of the filmmaker. You hardly understand who is making the film. And what we try to do is, on the contrary, is to make films as you would write a little note on your notebook, or it's really something that is very personal and subjective. So it's all about the alchemy of an encounter. And so the person just leads his normal life, and we follow what happens on a daily basis. It depends, if we spend only one day or if we spend a month with someone. And of course, in one day, necessarily the presence of the camera and the exceptional moment that the films produce will, it's a little bit like, I don't know, a burst of adrenaline for everyone. No, there is a little bit of an explosion of intensity, which is very lively. But then if you make the choice of shooting a film over a longer period, obviously you will enter in a more natural, calmer, like less yes, less explosive, maybe less in a longer temporality, which means, yeah, probably the camera will be more accepted, or its presence will be less invasive.
Yeah, we make films with very small cameras. We hope to have even smaller, or even invisible, because about your question is how do you proceed while filming? We proceed how you proceed yourself when you go out in the street. No, how do you proceed with people that you can find in the street? Do you do you ask to people in the street not to act? They are themselves. So you just have you ask to someone where is the shop, and is saying something. You improvise, you answer something else. Is a kind of relation that is we know how to do it. No, you know too, because we are used to have relations with other people. No, so we do the same. Is just the problem is that we have a little camera in the middle, as we don't film with the camera on our eyes, but we film with our belly, in the sense that the camera is really here is a very low, and also we film with our belly because we really improvise related to the people we have in front. So it's like acting in the street, as you act normally, no? So it's and so we dream to have an invisible camera just to record the normal relationship experience that we can have in a place with the other people. So it's something we do all the time, but there are people that they don't have time they don't take the time to observe. They don't take the time to stay a little while to look better, because we are always very occupied. So we have to run to the things that we have to do. We have our schedule. We have to do many things in the day. So we don't have the time to take a rest, take a little break, and watch outside, watch around us. And if you do this as an exercise, you will find incredibly interesting things. You just stay for a while, for half an hour in a place that even a place that you don't know why, you will see incredible things. Because if you have a little bit more time to spend in a place, you will discover a lot of relationship between people passing by and staying. That there's a beautiful book by Jean Perec, and he's doing this. Is épuisement d'un lieu, tentative d'épuisement d'un lieu parisien. I don't know the name in English.
Attempt to describe a Parisian place or something like that.
And he stays for more days in the same place, just writing down what is happening, and is the what we call the ordinary life. And you will see that out of the ordinary life, there's something real extraordinary. But it takes time, so we need to do this exercise, to take the time and calm down and observe. So it's the same. We can do it even without the camera.
Thank you.
Thank you to you.
Thank you. We are already at our final hour. Is there any last question from any of you? Otherwise, I have a final question, because you started your discussion with the discussion on what is architecture. And I would like to, and we've seen lots of examples. I have I think 100 more questions to the Moriyama experience and the pictures you showed from how people change the architecture. But as a final question, it would be interesting now, today, at this moment, what is architecture for you? Or what do you think architecture should be?
You want we answer now to the same question?
Yeah.
Yes, but from the moment, it's obviously it's a life, changing life. It's your question for you that started you and that will accompany you for all what is happening. But now that you come back from Bangkok, now that you have the film shown, now that you talk about the architecture, what do you think is important to, I would say, to as a giveaway for architecture students?
I will answer metaphorically that I think we are architects ourselves. I think it's a kind of metaphor, but it explains well what we are still doing. We started to do it with this question. We are imagining that we are part of the architecture. We are part of the space. We are an architecture ourselves, and but we never think about it. We have an architecture, and something is living inside us. No, that we are the organs, we are the veins, we are the blood. Everything is moving inside us, and there's a lot of communication even in the brain. There's more relationship between the neurons than all the stars in the universe. So it's something infinite inside us. But as you said, we don't know very well. No, we don't think about it. We always think about the outside. We never think about the inside. And what we are trying to do with our film is thinking about what is inside the architecture, what is inside us. And inside the architecture there's a humanity that is moving. There's a relationship. There's a life. There's a lot of things. And there's an organic material, a very incredibly organic material inside the architecture. But if you are an architect, you just think about the exterior, about the structure. No, you never think about this. Maybe if we one day we can imagine think about architecture as an organic material, as our body is, and so rich as our body is. Maybe we can change a little bit also our living, our structure, our exterior. No, thinking starting from the interior to change the exterior.
Thank you very much. One of my favorite teachers in my life said the importance is the space in between, not the structure. I see similar thoughts with your work. So I thank you very much for your talk, and ideally hope to see you in Vienna.
Yeah.
At some point, please, if you have a possibility, come back to us and hope to see you or welcome you at the TU Wien.
Sure, with pleasure.
Thank you.
See you all. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.